What about North Dakota now? It's a secret spot.
Well, yeah, it's up in the northwest corner. They have the Coto Hills, and it's a fine little spot for waterfowling, if nothing else.
Well, I get into a lot of fouling. It may not be water, but traffic and people.
Yeah.
I get balls
Great.
and strikes, and most of mine are foul balls.
Right.
You know, I got to tell you, folks that are listening to us, this is the Horses Advocate podcast, and thank you all for joining me. I'm going to remove this spot from my face. That's good. Anyway, and I have a ton of questions for Dr. Denny French, who is, well, the best way I can put this, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of these things, but you probably haven't heard it this way. In the state of Louisiana, Denny French walks on water. And you've been gone from there since what, 2016, 18, something like that?
2009.
Oh my gosh. And people still to this day, last week when I was there, were talking about you and how much they still love you. I mean, you got to be thrilled with that. You made such a good impression there. You know, you might not be able to cook breakfast, but you can help people with their horses. So anyway, I'm delighted to have you come join me here at the Horse Advocate podcast. You are head of the veterinary clinical medicine, is it, of Illinois College? Why don't you, because I'm terrible at these introductions, so why don't you just tell people what they need to know about you?
Well, sure. Actually, I did serve as the head of the Department for Veterinary Clinical Medicine for 6.5 years, but recently I'm back just working for a living, I like to say, doing clinical work both in the food animal ward, but also equine ambulatory with our Midwest equine ambulatory practice.
Mm. Yeah, well, there's a lot more depth to you that you can, listeners to this podcast can certainly look up. You're board certified in practice. You know everything about horses and ruminants and camels and parasites and what's fascinating is we're both the same age. You started into veterinary medicine before I did because I took 5 years off and just kind of muck stalls for a living, learned the horse from the ground up. But I met you in Louisiana at a kitchen table of one of our mutual clients. And it took me about 30 seconds to realize that you're a kindred spirit, that you're a like-minded person. You're more brilliant than I am. Don't even come close to that. But like-minded in the sense that you're questioning a lot of things and asking people to dig deep and start using their noodle up there in their brain to understand how things happen. And I've found that just so fascinating about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what is so appealing to veterinary medicine? And where I want to go with this is there's a tagline I have, helping horses thrive in a human world. And that requires veterinarians, it requires all the professionals, it requires the horse owner to come up to a certain level of understanding. And we all work together to help these horses really do more than just survive. And that's the meat of what I want to get into. And I thought you'd be brilliant at helping us understand that. And so I'd rather just sit and listen to what some of your thoughts are, and I'll kind of ask some questions, and maybe together we'll come up with some answers that'll help these horse people help their horses. So why don't you start off and just tell me what got you into horses, or specifically, I know it's all animals, but just help me out here.
Well, yeah, the horse, my initial interest. So just for background, I'm the son of a veterinarian. And for many years as a youngster, not being particularly shy or even perhaps wise, I told my father that there had to be an easier way to make a living, and I didn't understand why in the heck he was working so hard at this thing. And then he was asked to judge an endurance ride back in the late 60s, late 1960s. And I said, well, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Dad. Why don't you do that? And then he said, well, there's a horse out here that I think would be really good at that if you had in mind to ride in that thing. And I was a horseback rider, but the only lessons I've ever had were from my folks was you just come back with the horse. That was what I was, right?
In one piece.
So, yeah. I got on the horse, and I didn't know anything about training an endurance horse, but I thought, well, we'll just do this. We'll condition this horse just like we did on the football team. And we had about 45 days to get ready for this ride. And so I rode her twice a day, 4:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the afternoon. And as I started learning about what she could do, it became more and more intriguing to me, wanting to learn about, what was going on inside of that horse and why she wanted to work as hard as I did. And there were many times that she was more ready to do the exercise than I was, for sure.
Yeah.
So then she actually became my, so that I rode her. We didn't win. We finished second. It was the initial ride that I rode in was only a 25 miler, but we finished second. And that sort of gave me the bug to want to learn more about the horse. And, it actually formed a really nice bond with me and my father with regard to how, learning about the ins and outs of the horse and all species. So that's what got me started in veterinary medicine.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, mine was different. I was just looking for a good-looking girl.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I found her. 45 years later, we're still together. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
What did your dad teach you that you bring to your students today?
That's a great question. What he taught me was that there was always something more to learn.
Yeah.
And there's, the other thing that I always admired was how he had the respect of the folks, not only for whom he worked, but also for just how hard he worked, and people realized that. And I think, if nothing else, that he taught me that even if you didn't know what you were doing at the time, if you followed through with the what you knew from a logical standpoint, that work with the facts and then work towards the diagnosis and make that happen. So as long as you kept trying, you were probably going to come up with a reasonable answer.
Is it reasonable, and this might be my prejudice because of my age and being with horses before digital radiographs, digital this and that, almost before computers, certainly before GPS and trying to find a farm. Go down 3 or 4 streets and turn, there'll be an elm tree there, and you're like, what the hell does an elm tree look like?
Yeah.
The physical diagnosis was drilled into our head by Francis Fox. He was the head of medicine at Cornell. And he said, use your eyes, your touch, your smell, your hearing, use all your physical senses and dig in deep. And now I find it's a lot of new graduates, they're taught how to draw blood and how to turn the machine on. And this has got to be such a conflict for someone who was raised by a veterinarian who used nothing but physical diagnosis, and to transition over to this new age of computing, where you're looking at a machine, not even at the horse. This has been one of my biggest things, that it seems like veterinarians are disconnected from the horse and more connected to the machine looking at the horse. And I would love to hear your perspective, because it's such a valuable one. You've crossed both, how many generations? This is awesome. So.
Yeah, well, this is a great point. In fact, I just had an example of that last week, where I looked at a horse that he was lame, left front leg. Worked through the diagnostics that we had, palpated his suspensory ligament. The horse was sore on the suspensory. And I'm like, well, okay, I know the source of the where the pain is coming from. And the owner, interestingly enough, was like, well, I want an ultrasound to be able to see that as well. I'm like, okay. So it flabbergasts me sometimes. And you're speaking about our veterinary students and young veterinarians, and I think that's very true. A lot of them have no sense of palpation skills, and really don't know what to do with it. So can be a bit of a frustration for a guy with gray hair at this point in time. Like, come on, people, use your.
Yeah. It reminds me of when ultrasound came out. I was palpating mares, and how much the machine helped my fingers learn more.
Yep.
And so it's step one, step two, get your fingers in there, and then let the machine confirm what you're feeling. And I just don't know if that's what's happening these days. But one of the things that I took away from our kitchen meeting was just how few students are coming through who want to become, good horse vets. And now the statistics, according to AEP, is 1.4%, which for all our math challenged listeners, that's 1.4 students per every 100 or 14 per 1,000. And I don't know how many we graduate each year, but it's not that many. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, and not that many. And, gosh, it just to find some of those that are interested and skilled at working on a horse is that's two different things. And it's it can be a bit of a challenge. It's hard to be it's hard to find those ones that are ready to do that type of activity and kind of stick with it, because as you know, and it's hard getting your footing, and it's so much of a people business that in addition to physical skills that go along with being an equine veterinarian, and that's a challenge for us at this point in time.
So we all know that there's a challenge. I saw a huge challenge sitting in front of me today as I was driving from Georgia back home. There are more and more tractor trailers out there. There are just so many of them. And each of them still have signs saying, hey, we need you. There's one said, as wide as the back of the truck was, it said $2,500 in huge letters. Underneath it said per week. Underneath that, it says after your expenses. And then under that, it said you don't, no equipment necessary. So they're paying drivers $125,000 a year. After expenses, no outlay for equipment. And what's the average starting salary? What, $57,000 for a woman, $72,000 for a man, $92,000 for a small animal vet? The writing's right there. It's all money. How do you think, from your position, being in academics as a professor at LSU, and then going up to Illinois, and you've seen everything over the past 40 years. How can we start attracting people, and how can we start, I don't know how to say this, asking the owners to say, look, the fingers are going to do just fine in your case. You don't need the ultrasound. I'd love to hear the next hour, all your thoughts on this, because I'm sure you got some.
Well, it does come down to money, doesn't it? And it's a great example for the truck drivers. We're in the process of selling out my old home, and the individual that's purchasing the home and 5 acres of land, that's what he does, is trucking. And that rascal, he paid cash for the home. I'm like, and he's a youngster, and I'm like, wow, how do we? I don't see how veterinarians fit into that scheme. I could never have done that, and even today, I'm not sure I could pull that off for the purchase price of a $300,000 type establishment. And so it's money, and we do it allegedly for the love of the horse, but it's a difficult scenario trying to figure out how to be everything to all people. And as you know, you're traveling all over the country. That windshield time gets old after a while.
Well, I call my classroom time. I mean, that's where I'm listening to all these podcasts and getting ideas and notes. And I even do podcasts on the road every once in a while, though I don't like it. But it's a paradigm shift. Denny, I just say, okay, I've got clients scattered around the countryside, and they all want what I've got to offer. So am I addicted to what I do? I think the answer would be yes. I think the calling of being a horse vet is strong. I think a lot of people say, I can't do it because the finances are too high. But I think that if they wanted to go out and drive a semi for 4 or 5 years and sock that money away, then go to college. But people want everything right away. But there's let's say 4 or 5 years as a truck driver, and then 7 or 8 years as a student someplace, applying yourself full time. You can become a vet, but it's that drive, it's that passion. It's, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to sleep in your car in a truck stop in the cold, taking showers in the truck stop showers like I did when I started my practice? Who's willing to do that anymore? Or to be away from the family for so long? It's no doubt. It's an addiction. It's when you help a horse and the horse goes, thank you. I mean, you've seen it more than the people even recognize it. And how do you teach that? How do you draw that out? Come on, give me some answers, Dennis. I'm just like...
Well, honestly, the answer is our business is very much a people-oriented business, and I think the answer to establish that passion is to develop relationships with individuals earlier in their professional career, and that becomes harder and harder, because if you look at like social media right now, all these posts from various colleges, and every one of them, oh, we've just entered our class of 2026. And it's 150. Oh, it's 160 students. It's a large number of students, because there's allegedly a shortage of veterinarians. I don't believe there's a shortage of veterinarians. I believe there's a shortage of veterinarians that want to work.
So is that a generational shift?
Well, yeah, and maybe you and I did it all wrong, right? I mean,
exactly.
Sleeping
I mean,
And
that's
so,
such a great point. Did we do it wrong? Should we have said, no, I'm not going to work on weekends, or I need, more time off or quality of life?
yeah, it's hard to know, and I wouldn't have done it different, and I can't do it different even today. If somebody calls, we go, right, and
Yeah.
if it's 10 o'clock at night, you do that. So and I couldn't live with myself if I did that.
Yeah.
I would lay awake thinking, man, you're being terrible. You're not going out to help that horse. So,
well, that's
so
fair.
yeah, I don't think we did it wrong. I think that it's hard to find folks with that sort of passion anymore. And
Well,
and what we have to do is develop that relationship and instill in these students that there is some benefits to working hard.
what do you think about the application process? Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, it is. First of all, I don't think I could even begin to get into the knowledge of any veterinary medicine right now, because as I look at what we bring in, they have international experience and they've done all these various species, and they all have expected to have degrees in whatever, and that's great. I mean, they're really smart, and maybe because smart, they don't want to do the mucking stalls and down and dirty things that we've done, and so the application process. Yeah, I served on the admissions committee at LSU for 25 years, and it's one of the committees that I just refuse to be on up here at Illinois. You just got to do it without me, team.
Well, when you and I applied, I'll never forget, there was a whole interview process. I was in a three-piece suit that I'd never worn before. So I'm like constricted and sweat is pouring down my armpit, like a river. And I'm going in there saying my whole life, it depends on this. And then I spent the next several weeks. It's okay, I got them too. Several weeks wondering if I got in or not. And my wife and I were walking in a state forest up in Ithaca where I was living. And I said, look, they're going to let us know tomorrow if I got in or not. And what am I going to do if I don't? Am I going to be a stall mucker the rest of my life? Am I going to go drive semis? Because I was driving tractor trailers back then. Yes, I used to drive 18-wheelers. So, and I was married. And, the pressure was great. Now it's all about what's your GPA and, all this other stuff. And yeah, great. So you know how to turn the computer on, but do you know how to talk to the person who owns the horse? And how can you teach that? Should there be more time spent? Like, I was just at Lincoln Memorial, which is the new Tennessee vet school. I can't believe it. They asked me to come and give a talk there. I was like floored. And in the classroom of 500 or a couple hundred seats, there was 30 students that had attended. And I learned that they were all there because they had to collect a point to get into SCADMA. And I was like, okay, so I know you're all here collecting your point. And all of you are interested in small animals. You're not interested in horse teeth. Maybe 3 of you are. And I spent the next hour and 20 minutes just hitting them hard about what veterinary medicine is. And it's a calling, it's a passion. I don't care if it's small animals or turtles, zoo, doesn't matter. I love listening to the Aquatic Vet podcast put out by Cornell's senior student, assume she graduated, just talking about veterinarians in aquatic medicine. It was just amazing. There are so many avenues, but you have to be passionate. Do you see that passion coming in at all at any level?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the aquaculture. The most passionate students we have are those that are interested in this whole wildlife medicine, and they are totally committed to saving all critters, and they really do have the passion. And I just wonder how. And what I tell them is that great, that's a wonderful thing. You better be good at writing grants so that you can get paid for what you're doing.
Or cleaning fish tanks. By the way, I, for one day, was a certified aquatic veterinarian because my son went down to our creek behind the house and fished out some little fish and brought it back and put it into our fish tank. And over the next couple of days, our angelfish, who is swimming vertical, started to tilt this way. I was getting a covering on it, this gook, and it was checking out. So I grabbed the manual, the Merck veterinary manual, and I found out what ichthyosis was. And I said, So I grabbed some tetracycline powder and put in what I thought would be a good dose. And these fish are just like, ah! And the next day, the fish that was like this is starting to go vertical. And over the next 3 or 4 days became vertical, and everybody saw. So my son thought I was a hero.
Oh,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
That was my fish experience. But getting passion, I open up a school to bring in people who want to learn how to do dentistry the way I do it, which is the old-fashioned way. And I've had 25, 30 students come in, and there's probably been 5 that have been passionate about it and are still doing it. The rest spent their money, their time, and they're gone. And I wonder, the attrition rate is so high. I'm not even going to talk about suicide rates, but the attrition rate seems to be going higher and higher in veterinary medicine. And I joined the mentor vet program to be a mentor. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to have somebody just open up and talk, and I'd just listen. One person, we had one conversation, and then she ghosted me.
Yeah.
Which is a technical term, to ghost.
Yeah.
But it was frustrating because we want to help, but if they're not willing to listen, what do we do?
Yeah. And a lot of those programs, I mean, it's we have now a newly formed culture committee here at the university to make people feel better about what they do during the day, and it's interesting because they wanted to do just a simple luncheon dunk tank kind of thing, and when I was department head, I tried to do some seminars and things like that I thought would be beneficial for promotion, and had some outside speakers come in about various opportunities within the profession, both for and the goal was to get the faculty involved in that. And it about once or twice that works, and then by the third time they're like, oh well, too busy, can't show up. And that was really frustrating for me as a department head, thinking I was trying to do the right thing for the faculty, and yet they're all busy doing whatever they're doing, and they didn't bother to show up anymore. So those efforts just sort of went, started great, fizzled quickly. Just the same experience you had with the mentoring program. And I don't know the right answer to that. I don't know how you get people to have a sense of community and play. And further along that same line, if you had 30 people, it's interesting when we give lectures now. If we have 30 people out of 150 in the lecture hall, it's a lot, because it's all recorded. And so, there are many of the students will just sit at home and listen to it in their living areas and not even bother to show up to class. So it's tough to develop those sort of when it's this, it's virtual. And you and I get together pretty well because of our kitchen table talk, right? And that bond occurs. I think it's much harder when you're looking at screens.
Yeah. Well, I tell people it'd be really easy to work on a horse if they were just dead. See the skulls in the background there? I mean, I can float their teeth easy.
No sedation needed there.
No. Oh, good grief. This is something that's been bugging me for a while. Ever since I sat in that kitchen at Michelle's with you, and your name keeps coming up with Anita, who just still think that you're the greatest. And it brings me back to the same problem that us 69-year-olds, whatever we are, we're torn between, we really desperately want to help these students become better horse people, the owners become better horse owners, and help the horse. And this requires so much energy. And then there's the other side. Well, I'll just retire. I'll go out to North Dakota and just go hunting. And I've come to a realization that I bounce back and forth between those two things. So for a moment, I'll say, this is ridiculous. What am I doing? I'll drive from South Florida all the way through the Panhandle, all the way out to Louisiana. And this time I started in New Orleans, then went up to Folsom, and then I went all the way up to Shreveport. Then I went back down to Laplace, back down to Louisiana, then back up to, Natchitoches. Did I say it right? Okay. Natchitoches. And I went there, and that was my whole, Louisiana trip. And then I had to go to Tennessee and then over to Georgia. And then I came home, and then I had to bounce back up to Georgia yesterday for one client who couldn't be fit in during my normal trip, but there's 16 horses I wanted to see. And what drives me, what gets me in my car to do that? And what is it? And for me, this is where I go, whoops, I got to use my right hand. This is where I go over to this side where I work on the horse and they thank me. They say, oh my gosh, it's like I worked on that Shire. And I said, I don't want to medicate you. Medicating draft horses is tricky business. And I went ahead and I said, look, I know you've got a displaced old tooth. It's going to come out. And I need you to just behave. And he's looking at me, he said, no, I'd rather kill you. And I'm like, no. We're going to go in and I'm going to get the forceps on this tooth. It's leaning out. It's an end stage tooth. And I get on, I turn the owner, I said, when I latch onto this, it's going to be like the string attached to the tooth and the bumper of the truck. They're both going to go in different directions. And there'll be some hollering and screaming, but we're going to do it. And I got it on, and that horse went right up, head, right up in the roof, lunged forward with his head throwing himself out the window of this barn. My forceps go flying out, and the tooth goes flying out. And the horse goes, oh, thank you. And wouldn't leave me alone from that moment on, was just in my face, so grateful that I took that tooth out. And yeah, we could have the animal rights activists say, no, you should have sedated and, painkillers and all this stuff. But I knew that this horse could do it. How do we teach to these students that little flair, that stick-to-itiveness to work through some of the difficult situations we get into where the dog is coming up and barking at you? How do we work through those things and say, you and I would say, well, we've been doing it for years. We know we can do it. How do we bring that confidence to these students?
Yeah. So I told you I was back to doing clinics, and one of my first calls was actually a situation like that where we had some difficult. Well, it was a bunch of allegedly bull calves, but they were steers, and I think they were banded and they'd missed a testicle, and so I had the students out there with me, and it was tough. And one of the students was like, "No, I can't. I'm just not comfortable doing this, Dr. French." And I'm like, "No, we need to press on and get this done." And so we got the job done finally. About a week later, I got called into the new department head's office, and she said, "I need to speak about your interaction with a student because they just explained to me that they weren't very comfortable with what you were trying to do." And I said, "Not unexpected that I'm here before you today." And and it's interesting to me that there was no satisfaction from the student for getting the job done.
Yeah.
It was like, "No, I'm just really not comfortable with doing these procedures." And I'm like, you need to understand that there's going to be that kind of a situation for you in your career, and you've just got to push forward. It fell upon deaf ears, though, I will tell you for sure. And and that's not an answer to your question, but it's certainly an experience and a situation that brings very true to what you were prodding me to talk about. So
I'm not prodding you to do anything.
Yeah, stimulate that sort of, to get that self-satisfaction out of it. And I don't know where that's at anymore.
That sounds like a generational thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm sure that this next story you've heard or experienced yourself, but I'm fresh out of vet school, and the only job I could find was in a large animal clinic, mixed animal. So I did my cat spays. They were usually done, the cat castrations were done in the milk house, right? In a bag. And I was asked to see a cow that was having difficulty delivering. It's 8 o'clock at night. I was sleeping on the vet's couch and spending the whole night on his couch. That's what I did my first year out. And the call came in, his wife came out and said, "Geoff, you got to go." I said, "All right," because my boss, Doug, he would get up at 3:30 in the morning and go out, and he'd doing his own milking and taking care of his cows. So there I am at 8 o'clock at night in a big stanchion barn. There's like 100 cattle in there, small cows, and I do my exam, and I said, "This is a huge bull calf, and it's got to have to come out by cesarean." Now, how do I know that? I don't know. I had good teachers, right? So I said, "Fine, I'm going to have to call my boss because I've never done one before." Right? You know where this is going, don't you? I go over to the phone. Now, remember, this is dark. It's winter. There's like 8, 10 incandescent light bulbs in this huge place. So it's this low yellow glow. And I call him. I say, "Doug, I got a cesarean. I'm sure, what I do." He says, "Well, you know how to do it. Good luck." Click. And I go back to the dairyman and I say, "Well, it looks like I got to do the cesarean." And what does he do? He says, "All right, well, let me know if you need anything. I'll be inside the house." And I'm all alone. And I go through my repertoire of what I need to do and get the equipment I need to do, but nothing prepares you for the time that you're slicing over the uterus, and out comes this 150, 120-pound bull calf. It flops down on your feet, and you drag it up to the cow near the head, and they're licking it, and the cow is like saying, "Thank you," and everything's working so good until you turn around and you look back and you say, "Holy crap, I got to put the uterus back in."
Yeah, now I got to sew this up.
Yeah. And that kind of trial by fire is missing today. Everything seems to be so safe, so, perfect and clean and sedated and, electronic exams. And I guess I'm voicing more frustration to you, Denny, than anything else, because I know you're experiencing it too, but you're in the throes of teaching students. And you just told me they all don't respond to that kind of pressure. So what do you do? I mean, you're going to change everything since you had your little talk?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to change anything. And, to me, it's an interesting concept. This whole Texas Tech veterinary college, where they're now going to train only those students that want to go and practice in rural communities. And I wish them luck. I just don't know how much I actually believe that's going to work. The one thing that they have going for them is that I think it's a relatively small number of students, and that, they're, if I understand it correctly, they're sort of cherry picking those students that do have large animal interest and or background. And yet I don't know if that's the right thing to do either, because if it makes sense, some of those students come with such bad habits that it's going to be difficult to break, to educate them and use the science that we do have available to us. So, I think it's conceptually a great deal. The question is going to be, again, goes back to money. How do we keep them in the large animal side of things with the dollars that people are willing to spend? Probably and the distance, right? One of the most brilliant students I've had the opportunity to teach, he just got so frustrated because he got his boards. He was working hard for his clients, and then as soon as he gave like an educational seminar to his clients, or he developed a herd health program for his clients, they quit using him because they could go out and get their vaccines and develop their protocols without the use of veterinarian. And he got really frustrated by that very quickly.
That's a really good point, that it's a fine line I'm trying to walk myself. I want these horse owners to be educated. I want them to prevent disease, because preventing disease is economical for them. It's the right thing for the horse. They get this loss of use is, their longevity extends, so they have a better investment in what they're getting. But it's at a cost where the veterinarian seems to be phased out. We don't need the vet anymore. We're going back to the 1600s, 1700s, where you didn't need the vet. But the argument I have is, I think that if the vet took the pivotal role like your student did, and go out there and say, no, you still need me. You need me to institute these protocols and to make sure that we're monitoring them and everything is working right. There's got to be a role for a veterinarian in there someplace to balance this thing out. Because right now, veterinarians are going out, putting out fires left and right. Horses are dying. People are getting frustrated. They can't afford their horses. They're getting out of horses. So he's going to lose the business anyway. Or cattle, I guess. I don't know. And they're all buying dogs and cats. And those dog and cat vets are certainly making a lot of money. So how do you think we could balance this? How can we educate and help the horses thrive in the human world and still keep veterinarians relevant?
Yeah. Well, we started this conversation off with the two clients in Louisiana that are still calling me about various things and both of those individuals and any number of others What worked really well for me to gain their trust was just being as open and honest as I could be about what they could and couldn't do. And I developed a clientele within the university that, they wanted to learn. And I think that's probably the key for me, is to always from sort of marrying the knowledge with the skill set with the clientele, so that they trust you enough to call when you're needed, and be honest about them, that you have to make a living as well. So those two facts are probably the keys for me, and the success that I've had is education and service at the same time.
Yeah, because you're actually treating the client through their animal. And I think that's what I like to get across to people. We're in the people business. There's just no two ways around it. I mean, if I were your automobile technician, I would still be courting your relationship, our relationship, through your car. It's no different. But people think that we're working on the horse, and the baggage is the person that comes with it. And that's brilliant, actually. What you're saying is that's a good takeaway here on this. That these, it goes back to the generations and the social media and the Zoom meetings, and we don't have that oxytocin release, that comes across the kitchen table to really get that fourth dimension of communication that's almost intangible in this two-dimensional world. So yeah, that's brilliant. I like that. That's where we need to focus. It's a people business.
Yeah,
but of course,
for sure.
You're good at it.
Well, yeah, probably it's very interesting. A student that came to my office one day, and there was some conversation about this, that, and the other thing, and she finally looked at me and she said, "You're a good listener, Dr. French." And, it goes back to, and I've always tried to be, because when early on in my career, I was just fresh out of school, and this case still haunts me till today. Is that there was a mare, and she had a retained placenta, and I was like, "Oh man, I got to get this dealt with," right? And so the farm manager was there, and we were working diligently on the mare, and those are really rewarding, because as you get them, get the anti-inflammatories in them, and this and that and the other thing, and the placenta came out, and you could just watch this mare get better. And all the while that this is happening, the owner's saying, "Yeah, doc, and she really dripped a lot of milk prior to foaling." And I heard it, but I didn't hear. I didn't listen. Yeah. 2 days later, I'm out there euthanizing a septic foal, and I just, on a daily basis, to remember to listen to what my people are telling me while I'm doing the job. So,
how do you teach that? I mean, besides the hard knocks that you went through, right. How do you teach that to these?
Yeah. Again, that's a one-on-one thing, because I can say that in a classroom of 130, and there's, it's not going to make the impact that it would if they were standing next to me, or with me, in a truck or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I find that in all relationships, listening is always the important thing. I mean, Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said, "Seek first to understand, then to be understood." And that is basically listen first. And the art of listening takes volumes of educational material. Just it takes a lifetime of learning how to listen. And I found that with horses, when I'm working with them, it's automated now. I mean, I go in there and boom, I'm listening. I'm I'm asking, how are you doing to the horse? I'm asking, I'm asking all these questions of the horse. No words are coming out of my mouth, but I'm asking all these questions and I'm listening and I'm acknowledging what they're saying. And I'm like, but I'm using horse talk, if you will. But at the same time, I'm doing that with a horse client, listening to them. Tell me your story. Tell me when's the last time this horse got its teeth worked on. Tell me about what's going on in your life. And I'm getting all this blend. And it's amazing, the energy level just all falls down to this low spot. The horse goes, I don't know you, mister, but go ahead. And I start floating, and the woman starts to break down, almost in tears, because they'll say, no one's ever been able to touch this horse. And I'm like, no, nobody's ever listened. And and I swear, Dennis, I'm asking you this question, I don't know the answer. How do you teach this science or this technology, if you will, of how do you listen? Please, give me everything you got.
Well, it's a problem. I don't know if I have an answer for you. Clearly I don't, because otherwise I'd be a lot smarter, and people would be like, "Oh, you're the best educator in the whole world, Dr. French," because you. It's the fun part, though. It's the questions that you can ask of students, the questions you can ask of young professionals. We've got an intern in our ambulatory practice right now that she's got a lot of knowledge and some reasonable skills, but we go to a farm and I'm expecting her to sort of take the lead on managing the case, and she's off petting the cat. Why are you doing that? Or talking about how cute the dog is, and I'm like, no, that's not why we're here.
You still got to lead the dance.
Yeah. So there's work to do, and there are moments, as you mentioned earlier, it's like, Joe DiPietro and I have reconnected. He and I knew one another a long time ago as parasitologists. Certainly him, a much more accomplished parasitologist than me. But I saw him, and he was asking when I was going to retire. And I said, I'm still feeling pretty good. And I think I've got some things that I can still offer to both the animals and the students. And he just looked at me and he said, yeah, that was me too. But then it became hard. And we'll know when it's too hard, then it's time to retire. So, but it's a problem.
I won't let you.
Yeah.
I won't let you.
There's a lot of good things still out there for me. So I'm still
good,
happy, keeping trying anyway.
I think if students could learn the difference between confidence and arrogance, I find that arrogance comes in and it just shuts everyone down. There's no ears involved in that. But when you're confident allows you to stop and listen and not being ready for the next move. I think if a student is off petting the cat instead of leading the dance, it's just a matter of confidence. She doesn't have the right entrance point to move into the discussion. A lot of times I find they don't know what to do. It's like grabbing a phone, I got to check my, no, we need to focus now. And where do you want to start? I don't know. So I'll bring this student with me and I'll say, okay, it's your turn. You're going to approach the client and talk to her. You just examine the horse. Tell me what you think. And they're like, I said, that's okay. You'll get there. But I dropped some key words so they can get on the recording in their mind, so they can start to say these things. And it takes time, but they can't worry about failing. They just can't worry about failing. You and I have failed, there are horrible stories we probably don't even want to talk about. We've failed. We've failed in our relationships with our spouses, but we're willing to come back and say, all right, I'm analyzing this. I see where I went wrong. I'm not arrogant. I'm confident that I can do better next time. And let's build on this. Let's grow from it. And a lot of these students, I think, are so sensitive to failure of any kind. And worse, they have been nurtured to win the whole time, to get the best grades, to come here. And now they're in a class of 130 of equals. And oh my God, I still have to be number one. And they're not, maybe they all need to smoke a joint or something. I don't know, but they probably are already.
Hey.
Chill, man.
Well,
get a D in vet school, you're still a DVM. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the other thing that came from Father French. He said one of his famous quotes was, "Everyone deserves a chance to fail." And he meant it in the most positive manner, because if you don't try, or if you never try, you're never going to fail. So, this is one of the things that frustrates me about our admissions process and all the way through, is like, and we really do coddle our students at this point in time, because if they didn't score well on an exam, don't worry, we'll give you a repeat exam, to get you through. I'm like, no. Sometimes we just need, to have a strikeout every once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, we've all failed. I got fired from a job that was a dream job. I was a lifeguard during high school, and it was a high school soccer coach who fired me because I didn't clean up the night before. And I said, I'm like, but wait a minute. The reason I didn't clean up was because I took a paraplegic underwater and taught him how to scuba dive, a thrill of his life. I took him all over the pool underwater with a scuba tank on his back. And he was like in tears. He was so happy and joyful. And the parents were happy and joyful. And it got dark. So I came in an hour early and cleaned everything up before I opened. Why are you firing me? But it was still, I was fired. And that's because he hated me because I was a football player and he's a soccer coach. But you fall forward and you pick yourself up. If you've got your integrity, if you fail, you still have your integrity. If you fail because you personally failed at a soul level, then you need to leave. But if you fail, but you're trying the best you can, great. Hello, this is perfect. You're human. Oh, gosh. But you're right. Telling that to 130 people may be tough, or even 30.
Yeah. 3. That was the magic number.
1,
good, 2, okay, 3. By the 3, that makes it hard to connect.
Yeah, you got to take them out one at a time and bring them out to the farm and say, look at this horse and see it connecting. Look at this horse. Look at this calf. Look at this mare. Look at this whatever. Just these animals are living in a human world. They're not out there worried about, predators like that one. They're living a life of ease, but they're still confined, and they need help from us, and they get into trouble. They get sticks shoved up their butts and, lacerations and all sorts of things. They still need us. We have to go out there and show some sort of compassion, and they will say thank you. And to me, that's such an addictive thing for me. Just every time the horse says thank you, it's like, that's what does it for me anyway. So yeah, I guess Houston, we have a problem. The money's the big thing. Having 20 pets come through your front door and knocking them out every 15 minutes, that's just great. But when you have to go 100 miles to go see this cantankerous mule, it's going to make your life miserable. I can see why people don't want to do it. But it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge. It's the MacGyver. How are we going to figure this one out? And
that,
charge.
Yeah. When you do get it figured out, it really is. It is rewarding. It's rewarding for the horse. It's rewarding for you personally, and having those kind of things, and I don't know if I have the correct answer, but we do a lot of work to protect our students, and maybe the answer is don't protect them quite as much as we did, and let them get some of their own confidence.
Because
see how that works.
Horse owners are seeing that, Denny. They're seeing it. They're seeing these lack of confidence, and then they dish it right back to the brand new veterinarian by saying, "Oh God, you're a new one, aren't you?" And they and just stabs them in the heart.
Yeah, interesting. I went out, so I like I said, I stepped back into this practice, and my two colleagues within the practice are doing a great job. We bought this practice and had a rough start. The individual we bought it from was supposed to be a part of it, and then he got ill and actually passed away. Kind of went a little rocky for the first year or so. But our two doctors within this practice are doing a great job. And then they both have had some medical issues. And so anyway, get to my story here is I went out, established farm, nice farm. And when I went there, it was for an emergency. Yeah, the laceration, that was fine. But they also had they had scheduled to have teeth floated that day as well. And they're like, no, we'll wait for the other doctor. And so anyway, got there, sewed up the horse, and the owner of the barn was like, "Oh, well, if I'd have known you were a skilled, she was apparently happy with my suture job, if nothing else." She said, "Knowing you had skill, let you float the horse's teeth here today too." So, but she was hesitant because not sure who she'd get or what the level of skill would be, and so yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, change can be scary for people.
Yeah,
you're the new guy.
Yeah, guy.
You're the new guy.
Freshman, I'm the new guy.
Oh. Well, I keep asking people these same questions. I keep asking horse owners. I actually tell them it's your fault, not our fault. It's your fault you're having a problem because you're not willing to pay enough, and you're always wanting the latest and greatest gadgets to fix your horse. And that costs money. And so, yeah, we've got the student debt, and then we have all the equipment they have. And you live, 50 miles in one direction, and they've got a colic in 50 miles in the other direction. You guys got to lighten up, and you got to lower your expectations so the vet can meet those expectations so everyone's happy. But I also think that the veterinarians, like I see some really, really good veterinarians, racetrack practices, they're doing thousands of horses all in a 3-acre lot, with a racetrack on it. And they're making millions of dollars a year with, $500,000 in accounts receivable. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the rural areas, and the rural areas need their veterinarians. They really do. And we need veterinarians to step forward. And I think, you can count on me if you ever come up with an idea you want to run by and help these people out. I'll try to be nice. I don't guarantee it. Suck it up, buttercup. But
Yeah.
and maybe you can teach me some stuff about being more compassionate, understanding that people want a life. I've got a gal working with me for 13 years now, and she's taught me about taking time off, taking weekends off. I'm fortunately in a all voluntary, non-emergency practice, but I still have emergencies, and I answer the phone and I go if I can. So I'm still old school, but she's teaching me this new school. One thing guaranteed is that we all die. There's no doubt about it. And for me, enjoying life includes working with horses and giving back to the horse. For others, it's taking time off and going to North Dakota and, and fishing or hunting. Each one of us has something special, and we can't tear them down because they want that. And that's the lesson I'm learning these days. I don't expect anybody to work as hard as us or to get as dirty or, risk our lives being thrown out a window by a Pertron, I don't expect that from everybody, but they have to see that it's possible, and then they can decide. So there's this part of me that would love to trade shoes with you just to have an opportunity to work with all these students. Because if we don't help them, where's this profession going to be soon?
Yep. Well, we keep trying, and it's still fun. So, and I still have questions about how to do it better. It's one of the reasons I came to Illinois was that we actually put students in the clinics in the second half of their first semester here, and it's nice. It gives the students a break from the academic rigors, right? It gives them some idea what clinics are like. What I struggle with is how to, and we go through and we do, sort of skills and handling and those sort of things on horses. And at the end of the week, they're like, wow, this was a great week, Dr. French. How do you expect me to remember this until I'm a fourth year? I'm like, no, you've missed the whole point. You're supposed to remember your life. And so that's one of my goals, is to get back into the clinics and see if I can figure out how to push that button and make it more real for them.
Yeah. I started in vet school. I started, I think it's my second year, maybe it's the third year. It was my third year. I started a volunteer program of teaching people how to handle horses, how to pass the stomach tube, how to put a twitch on, how to work around their legs, how to stay safe. And we had half the senior class there learning. I was like, and half the junior class. So I must have been a sophomore. And it was so much fun, teaching these skills. If you had something like that now, I don't know, maybe you'd have 3 people show up. I don't know. But they need some fun time. They need to learn how to pass the stomach tube with their eyes closed and not be so nervous, and how to do abdominocentesis, and all these things that are these, just come on, we're going to go over it again. We're going to go over it again until you're like, when you graduate, bam, you've got this. But they're all so busy with their noses in the books, maybe they don't have time. I don't know.
Well, it's not books anymore.
Sorry.
It's screened. Yeah. That's passe. Pretty sure that, that we get criticized when we don't have notes along with PowerPoints so that they can, they have them readily available on their computers. So it's an interesting time.
All right, Denny. Well, I appreciate you being there and continuing to do this. I hope that there's dozens of you out there helping, trying to get these students to click in. Because if not, we got a crisis in the horse world, I think. So if you feel like quitting, just give me a call. I'll boost you along, because I'm not ready yet.
All right.
I've got another decade or more in me. So I just took out another loan. So I guess I'm stuck. I got to keep working. I need a new roof.
Yeah.
And Anita and Michelle won't let me go. They'll say, no, you can't die. You can't quit.
That's it. Got to keep going.
Yeah. Well, if I ever get up to Illinois, but certainly if you ever take a trip down here to South Florida, please look me up. I would love to show you around, and be a good time down here.
Good.
All right. Got anything else you want to add to this?
No, I think got the grandchildren here, and so we're getting ready for a little Friday evening time. Good. All
right, you take care of those grandkids. I got my kid in town. He flew in from Indonesia and spent a couple months with us. So that's our little treat.
Absolutely.
So thanks for taking the time, Dr. Dennis French from Illinois. I appreciate Illinois and LSU, and it's a cool friendship. I hope that I can maintain our connections over the years. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Geoff. Anytime.
All right. Hey, everyone. Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.